Much more of a difficult time in 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70. You had the draft going on where you turned age 18, you had to sign up for the draft. The lottery hadn't started yet when I graduated from high school in 64. And you were open season unless you had an illness. And at that time, if you were married or married and had children, you weren't subject to the draft. But if none of those problems were there, then you were subject to the draft after high school.
It was a small pool of potential draftees, and I was getting a little nervous because I wasn't, full-time college wasn't for me at that period of my life. Being an Army brat, I knew what Army life was like, and I knew what was in store for me if I got drafted, so I volunteered and chose my career path. And I went to the recruiter and picked out a brochure and told him that I wanted to become a helicopter pilot.
Everyone wanted to join the Air Force because that was the easiest one to get into. Air Force was full. My parents dropped me off at a big building in Oakland, the government building, and you get in line, and I was in the Army.
And when you go into boot camp, they said you go in and they kind of strip all of what you were away. It was just completely disoriented. And then from there you waited for 3 or 4 days, and then until you have enough for a platoon. And then you were issued everything. You shipped your stuff home. You made a phone call home. I made it safe, and it was very scripted. You know, hi, I'll let you know I'm at Marine Corps Recruit Training Barracks Island. I'm okay. I'm fine. Goodbye. But, that was it. There's a little thing in front of you. This is what you read. Hang up. The next guy comes out.
3 to 4 times a week, we'd do a 20-mile run with a 40-pound pack on and a rifle. And you'd be up at 5 in the morning. You'd have breakfast, and then you'd go out on this run. Now, it's what they call paratrooper shuffle. It wasn't a fast run, but 20 miles is 20 miles. And the fellow who trained us was we had a couple of them, but they were from the British Black Watch, the commandos. And as we would be running, they would run around us for 20 miles. So you can imagine that. And isn't it crazy? Somebody said today, could you do that? No, nobody would do that. But what they were doing is preparing us for the endurance you'd need in Vietnam.
In inspection, you would have our drill sergeant, drop a quarter, and it has to hit the bed and turn over, had to bounce. So yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the kind of discipline that they would impose on you, and you learn. Everybody learned. Yeah.
On one of the older carriers, it was interesting that even in the Gulf, there was so much Agent Orange that had been flushed out to sea that the evaporators on the older ships could not purify the water that much. They didn't realize they could take almost everything out of the water to purify it but Agent Orange. So you had sailors who never set foot in Vietnam also suffering to some extent from the effects of having Agent Orange. This is something else.
So we would have local Vietnamese community come on base, and they were cleared and security-wise. And so we would be interacting with them, barbers, So there was a lot of activity in that way, so that our base essentially was helping sustain the local communities by hiring people.
We were attacked by the Viet Cong. The Viet Cong, what made it difficult to Viet Cong is you could never tell who was a Viet Cong. They didn't dress, they had no uniform. So it was, if this were Vietnam and you were Vietnamese, you could all be Viet Cong the way you're dressed. There's no way to distinguish it. So you walk to a village, you didn't know who to trust or not to trust. And it made it difficult. And, the Americans were as humane as they could be, but on the other side, you had to protect yourself too. And
drugs were rampant. The Viet Cong, the North Vietnamese, were really smart. And a lot of the people in the rear echelons, the support centers, were bored and they easily got on drugs. Most of us in combat, this is a little heavy, I'm trying to find something else, we're trained so that you hear that sound, you're up and ready. When you're in the jungle, you hear that sound, you're up and ready for action right away. You cannot be ready for action when you're on drugs, and that was the first time I almost got killed. When I took over my platoon and we went out on our first mission, another fellow came in the country with me, had already been in the platoon but was on drugs. So the Philippines was a detox center for drugs. He came back from detox center with me and went out into the jungle with my platoon. And the first day there, I took a squad out to go hunting because my training was in tracking. And when I came back, I saw that all my platoon had this kid up against the wall and they were ready to kill him. This fella had gotten back on heroin. He was asleep against a tree, and any North Vietnamese or Viet Cong could have come through his side of the perimeter where everyone else was facing out to protect everybody. He fell asleep and the enemy could have come in and annihilated everyone. They had it with him. They were going to kill him right then and there. And I stepped between my platoon and this guy, so I saved that kid's life. Drugs were rampant. First thing you learn on heroin is after you get 2 shots in you, from that point on you have to keep on increasing until you die. And so drugs were a rampant problem for the people on the artillery bases where we would protect for 3 days and go back into the jungle. And they were rampant in the support areas. But out in combat, it was very rare that an infantry soldier was on drugs. And in the jungle, you never dig in. You need to be able to move as quick as you can. And there's enough shrubs and brush around that you can hide very well. But in this place, we decided we were going to defend a position that was wide open. So I had everyone dig down deep for a defensive position because the other side was probably going to mortar us or RPG us, and we needed to be able to get low so we wouldn't get hit with shrapnel. Everyone fixed bayonets, and then I stood up and I said a prayer. And they never showed up. And in my story, there was a fire base that was overrun. 1 of 2 in the entire 10 years we were there. And bad guys walked right through our perimeter. And you couldn't kill them because you didn't know if they were your own people or them. So they just walked right through us. Nothing we could do about it because if you shoot a weapon, somebody can see the flash. If you try to kill them with a bayonet, you don't know if you're killing your own person. So you have to just freeze and let them go through. And that fire base that was overrun, they hit the ammo dump and blew up the ammunition, which is fireworks. I today, 48 years later, cannot stomach 4th of July fireworks.
He never talked about it much. He was shot and left in the field, and when people went out to help him, they would shoot him. He was bait, and then this other stuff affected him, like PTSD, I think now you call it. And so if we went to the 4th of July, the fireworks would go off, he'd hit the ground if you didn't know it, and people would kind of laugh. And but he never talked about it much, but I'm pretty sure it affected him.
Kind of training, okay, well when I was leaving Vietnam, I flew back to Fort Lewis, Washington. That's where I was released from the Air Force because I had done my 4 years. And we just get out of the airplane and we're walking toward a terminal, you know, and then not far away off the base, there's this bang, bang, bang. Well, it happened to be the 4th of July. Fireworks going on. And we had been trained so well, I guess, at least some of us. There were a couple of Army guys with a couple of Air Force guys getting off the plane. What happened when these fireworks, they hit the ground. So here we are, you know, stateside, and all these guys hit the ground all of a sudden, and us Air Force guys are saying, what the heck are they doing, you know? But it was just, you know, they were trained so well. Here's bang, bang, flat on the ground, you know. So we thought that was kind of funny. They didn't think it was so funny.
The general procedure was, you know, when somebody was injured in Vietnam or ill, any medical problem, they would get you as far away from Vietnam as they could, depending on how much you could travel. So, you know, you start out in a what they called an evacuation hospital in Vietnam, which was basically a lot of sandbags and tents and temporary buildings that could do anything a hospital in the U.S. could do. When you were good enough to travel, they'd move you out to someplace like Japan or Okinawa. Most of the people who went through military naval hospitals had positive impressions of the care they were given. The worst thing that could happen to you would be to be discharged and transferred to a VA hospital, where the care was generally considered to be third rate. You know, the stereotype of doctors who can't get jobs in real hospitals, nurses who were minimum wage, didn't really care about the patients, you know, not so much nurses, the ward attendants.
It was fascinating to meet these other American guys, you know, my age, and listen to their experiences, and we just kind of exchange stories. What's it like in Florida? You know, oh, what's it like in California? You know, and it was really fascinating to get this interchange, and I thought it was very, very valuable. I thought that something like the military, because of that valuable, enriching experience of meeting other people, there should be a national service. And it doesn't have to be military, it could be serving society in some way. But that experience of interacting with people from all over was fascinating. That's one of the things that I found valuable.
You know, the positive parts of that experience was not only appreciating life, but also, you know, when I got out, I was, you know, they paid for education, and they, you know, there was a lot of benefits associated with it. So, you know, they put me through San Jose State and Santa Clara U, and I'm not sure I would have done that otherwise. So.
Yeah, the thing that the big takeaway is, yeah, you're gonna, if you want a place to succeed that's got nearly limitless potential, the military is kind of the place to do it. You know, if you want to go fly a space shuttle, you join the military. You want to go fly in a fighter jet, join the military. You want to go ride around in a metal tube under the water, go to the Antarctic, join the military. And all you got to do is volunteer. You just got to say, hey, I want to do that thing. And